And there's not much you can do to control that as a consumer or us as agents. Like that, it is what it is.
Hi, this is Moriah Wicker and Cassie DW with KW here in Plymouth.
Welcome to Selling the South Shore, Real Estate in Real Life.
Whether you're looking to buy, sell, or live like a local, we've got you covered. Let's dive into today's topic.
Hi guys, it's Moriah Wicker and Cassie DW with KW here in Plymouth. And today we are here to break down for you the 2024 real estate market and what it looks like, and then what that kind of provides us with as a potential insight into 2025. We'll talk more about that in our upcoming video, but today we're just going to really break down this year by quarter. And, you know, it was an interesting look back for sure.
Definitely, yeah. Especially a lot different than years past. I think it's going to be telling for some years to come. So,
yeah. And just so you guys know, where we get our information from is we'll post the link. We check in with KWRI, which is our company that we work for. They put out a video every single month that breaks down not only what's going on in the real estate market, but also what's going on in the economy. So we'll have that information for you. And then we also pull our local stats from the local MLS here. We pull the South Shore, meet the South Shore towns. And then we also look in a specific range. So you want to talk about the range that we kind of frame our research on?
Yeah, so we mostly work with single family homes. So we pretty much just take this single family data. And then we also put a specific price range. You don't really find many homes under like 450,000. And then we go up to 2.5 million as kind of the top line. So we feel like those outliers kind of really skew the data in a way that isn't
helpful to our clients.
To our clients at all. Yeah. So
anything below 450, I hate to say it. When I first got into the business, I remember my first listing, we listed at 300,000, and you could find a home for under 350 as like a starter home. Really, I would say even like we put 450 because we have got people that have bought something for 450 and, you know, made it work, and maybe they were cash or something. But realistically, we're seeing, I just said to a client this morning, anything below 550 probably needs $25,000 to $50,000 worth of work. And it's not just like paint and floors. It's like substantial mechanical systems, bones of the home. That like you don't want to be getting into. If you have a budget, like that's my other thing too, is like if you don't have a budget necessarily, then who cares? But if the reason why you're shopping in that range is because you cannot cross a number on your monthly budget, you really have to look at your purchase as a whole and kind of buy maybe a little bit beyond your budget to save you money, because it's just the reality of what an entry-level home looks like on the market today. So
that was exactly what Amy and I did even 2 years ago. Like our budget was 400, and looking at that homes, all we found were homes that were going to need work. And again, like our monthly budget, her being a teacher, and I was at the time as well. Just like couldn't really make it work. So we ended up upping the budget, bought a house for 445, but everything was brand new, roof, mechanicals, all that stuff. So 2 years later, it's like, we knew we upped that monthly budget a little bit, but we knew we were able to coast, and we're not going to have to spend any big chunks of money anytime soon. So hopefully, let's knock on wood.
All right, so we're going to start off with quarter one, which obviously is January through March. As we were kind of breaking out the year by these quarters, we also said, like, you know, when we do this again, maybe next year, we might break it into like the late winter market, into spring market, the summer market, the fall market, and then the early winter market. We almost have like, I feel like 5 kind of markets that we tend to see, because as we'll talk about, the real estate market kind of kicked off around mid-February. We expect that to be true in 2025. And it was almost like the spring market was for 6 weeks. And the data will not really show up on this until quarter 2. But we're going to go through and talk about each quarter. So I'll start with quarter 1. So there were 478 units sold. So again, these are homes listed in December, January, maybe even November. Days to offer, 32 days as the average, 82 expired listings. The original list price on a lot of these homes, the average was $820,000 at the time of the offer. it was 805,000 as the average, and then the average sale price was 800,000.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
So what is the difference, or kind of what's important to know? We have a different original list price versus the average at the time of the offer.
Yeah, so that means the seller was doing price drops, or the average seller was doing price drops, because you see it go down. And then that's what's interesting about the list price to sale price ratio, is that homes that closed in January through March on average sold at 99% of their asking price, but only 97% of their original asking price, which is pretty substantial. We don't see that in a seller's market. Typically, you think seller's market, you're getting the asking, you're getting waived inspection, you're getting the whole kit and caboodle. But these homes that listed, again, December, January, when rates, and what we can look at where rates are at that time, were nearing that 7% threshold, did not perform very well. So bringing us to interest rates. So the month of January, we were at 6.5. February, we were at 6.7. March, we were at 6.8. So it is kind of interesting, though, to see those interest rates started to creep up a little bit. We don't have what December was.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if we had looked back at 2023, what rates were in November and December of 2023. Because sometimes it takes consumers a little bit of time to say, oh, rates are low. And then by the time they get going, they've started to change.
Yep.
For better, for worse. So here's what's going on in the economy, if we want to look back at that time. So we started off the year with very strong jobs reports, very strong, stable unemployment, but inflation was still not in control. So what that means is there was really no reason for the Fed to lower interest rates. So they don't really care that housing isn't doing well if the rest of the economy is doing well.
Yep.
So there was really no reason for them to lower interest rates, because if they did, inflation still wouldn't have been in control. So they were trying to target that 2% number. So that's why, even though we kind of heard a lot of marry the house, date the rate, and while that still rings true, it's been a very slow decline.
Yeah.
So because inflation was not in control and the economy and other sectors was doing well, we saw those rates kind of stay the same, which is still true right now. January felt really slow. I don't know about for you, but thinking back, January, I think I had one buyer that was active. We were prepping a couple of sellers for the spring, but it was very quiet.
Yeah.
Much like right now, there was very low inventory, and most buyers were on hold with their purchase. We saw a lot of buyers that were still active go under agreement below asking. So again, just like right now. So you just got someone under agreement for what?
40,000 under ask plus 10,000 back at close. So we're 50,000 under asking.
And then how'd you get the 10K back as a result
of the home inspection that we were able to have?
Yep.
With a very low threshold as well. So we've seen getting able to get in there at the right terms that you want, at the right price that you want, is definitely something that was happening back in January. And again,
then February, middle of February, it was like a switch was flipped, right? We saw it go absolutely bananas, and it almost felt like the COVID market all over again. You had waived appraisals, you had waived home inspections, inventory was up, there was more for people to choose from. But again, just like we've been seeing now that rates are where they're at, the good homes were gone in minutes. And we, again, anticipate that will happen again this year. So it literally went from a buyer's market to, still a seller's market, but opportunity for buyers in a seller's market, I guess is the best way to say it, to a true seller's market where you are getting just these insane offers. Yeah, you're getting 10 offers and every one of them is good, and you better not have a home to sell.
Yeah.
And you better have strong financing and not ask the seller for anything.
Yep.
Just sign the offer and they'll send you back what you're going to pay and when it's going to close.
Yes.
So how about quarter two? So again, quarter two is going to show the results of what I just talked about.
Yeah. So again, when we're talking about this whole data, think the average transaction is going to take about 45 days from offer accepted to when it actually sells. So there's a little bit of a lag when we have our sold data. So this quarter two, we ended up having 795 units sell. So a huge jump.
Almost double.
Yeah, almost double from quarter one. Days to offer was 20, whereas 32 in quarter one. So
yeah, it's like a 33% drop.
Yep. Only 54 homes expired. So most homes that were listing were going. Original list price was $843, and the average list price once they got the offer was $834. So still a little bit of a drop there. Like there were still some houses that were priced a little bit too high. However, that difference was a lot less. And the average sales price was $846,000.
And what's funny here is like, even though they had to drop the price, they made up for it on the back end.
Yeah.
Whereas like quarter one people didn't even get they weren't even getting 100% of their asking price. But what's this ratio tell you?
Yeah, so the list to sale price ratio was 102% from that average the list price at the time of the offer, but it was still 100% from that original list price. So yeah, even if they had to drop the price, they were still getting at least at ask
Of their original
price.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And actually that happened to a couple of buyers of mine. It was house was stayed on the market maybe a week, 2 weeks, ended up doing a price drop. We come in 3 weeks into it thinking we're going to get a deal like we were seeing back in January. And then all of a sudden there's a multiple offer situation on this house that had been sitting.
Right.
And it ended up going, at or above where it was originally listed. So yeah, there was a lot of weird, it was busy during that time.
And that's what makes it hard for buyers to understand. And I know we say this all the time, like every house is different. Every time is different. So you can't really, like you should be informed about what's happened from your previous experiences, but you can't expect like what happened in January to be true in April, at all. Just because you maybe had a chance on that from a price drop doesn't mean it'll be true this time.
Exactly, yeah. And then rates actually continued to kind of tick up a little bit. April was slightly under 7. May was slightly over 7. And then June ticked back down to like 6.9. Yeah, rates, weren't dropping much, but we still saw that buyer activity out there April through June.
Yeah.
Was definitely busy. What was going on in the economy, aside from housing, the economy was doing well. Unemployment was low. So the Fed was focused on the stubborn inflation as their reasoning for not being pressured to lower rates. Yeah. So, we'll get to it when we get to what? Q3 is when they did their first Fed rate. So, the inflation was still up in quarter two.
And they even see here, like they probably the same as us, started to feel and see that mayhem in February and March and probably like, whoa, we better, and you see the rates increase because they don't want a year of 20% growth to happen in the housing market and affordability to become even further out of reach for your first time buyer.
Exactly. And what it felt like, so we said earlier how the spring market was really those 6 weeks. Second half of February, all of March, April felt like that COVID market. It was very busy, very competitive. All right. So as we turned the corner on quarter two, things definitely slowed down over the summer. Not as slow as we're seeing now, like in the winter market, but things definitely got slower and things were ticking up a little bit. You saw a little bit more expireds. And honestly, I think what causes some of the uptick in the days on market is we saw a lot of back on markets, which we couldn't get that data. But I think starting in quarter two was a weird trend that we really saw throughout the year, a lot of back on markets. Yeah. And that was crazy because people, I think, felt like, was it the home inspection? What's wrong with the house? Yet a lot of it, in talking to different lenders and different agents, a lot of it was financing. Yeah, a lot of financing. So quarter two started pretty crazy and then started getting a bit slow moving into quarter three.
Still like a seller's market. Still, but it's not like, I think we've been conditioned, or our sellers have been conditioned to think that a seller's market means waived inspection and this and that. And sometimes you're still definitely, like, we're not saying, like, one thing we're not saying or haven't said, our price is going down. Yeah. There's just opportunity to negotiate when we see these moments in the market, so.
Definitely.
All right. So on to quarter three. The other thing, like talking about expires you just mentioned, reminded me like not only are you probably going to get the most amount of money, the most leverage out of a buyer, but also you're least likely to expire. You're least likely to not get an offer, because we see in the other quarters as we go through them, they're all around that like 80 to 100 number, whereas like you have, half the chance of expiring in quarter two if you list in February, March, April, right? Okay, so on to quarter three. So 995 closed units. So again, like still an increase. And I know I had a closing in the very end of June from a property listed in February because of that exact reason. The buyer was like, just whatever I have to do to get the house.
Yeah.
So even some of these ones in July, they could have been from March and April listings.
They were just extended because that's what the sellers needed.
Days to offer was 23. Now we're seeing that uptick in expireds, 84 expireds. Original list price was $854. List price at the time of the offer was $837, and the average sale price was $843. So again, your list to sale price ratio at this time of offer is still over the asking price. They're at 101 on an average, and then 98 of your original number that you wanted. And again, like I remember when I first got into the business, pulling stats, and I didn't know what LP/SP ratio was.
Yeah.
The seller's getting 98% of what they want. That's really good. And now we're looking at that number and like, oh, like.
Yeah, I remember thinking like 100, 101 was a low number.
Yeah, right.
In my first, 2.5 years in the business.
Right.
Like it was, 108, 104. Those were like your average. So.
Now interest rates. So this is when interest rates, again, July, they were over 7% average. August took a quick dive down to 6.5%. And I remember at the end of August, that's when we were starting to call some of our 2023 clients and saying, this is your refi time. Get ready. Like I had someone hold us at Pi Day. They refied down on a VA loan and they saved $500 a month.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so then when we entered the first week in September, we were at around 6%. So what was going on in the economy? A lot of people might be like, wait a minute, September, that's when the Fed met. So isn't that when we had a rate decrease? So we'll talk about that. So what was going on in the economy? Unemployment had slightly ticked up. So now remember we said quarter one, quarter two, jobs report and employment were both fine. Inflation was still out of control. So we're trying to get to that 2% mark. However, we saw in quarter three that unemployment tick up. Now the Fed's going to care about housing. I know in the KWRI video, Ruben had said housing is sometimes what brings us into a recession, but it's also what can bring us out of it. So by kind of teetering with rates to get them down to 6%, that's when they started to kind of lean on the housing market to get us out of what could fearfully become a rising unemployment rate. And inflation was starting to come down to that goal of 2% in July. So therefore, we saw August and early September being a great time for rates. We know, though, that when the Fed met, like we know that they build in the rate reduction ahead of that big meeting. But when the Fed met, they did a bigger drop than what was expected, but said that their future drops may be a little less than expected. Yeah. And that like freaked people out that are in the economic world. So what it felt like, it got extremely quiet. And obviously we know we had an election coming up, and it felt like a preview of a potential buyer's market, just like 2023. Inventory was slightly up, rates were starting to come down, and buyers weren't as motivated. Yeah. Like we talk a lot about, borrowing buyers from the past. And it felt like buyers at the end of the summer were choosing to go to Taylor Swift concerts and Kenny Chesney and doing time at the beach. We had beautiful weather over the summer. Yep. So do you really want to go and shop for a house at a $4,000 mortgage, or would you rather go and enjoy your last weekend at the beach? So what we're left with, I feel like now, are some less motivated buyers, because your most motivated buyers that are most dialed into financial decisions, they bought when rates were low. Yeah. Like they pulled the trigger 3 years ago. You're now kind of left with the people that feel that the market was going to crash and they were waiting for something to happen, and now time has kind of caught up with them. Yep. and they realize that, okay, prices aren't coming down and rates are what the rates are. So I better do it before I can't. There was like a brief seller's market in late August and early September as rates declined. We saw again a lot of waived home inspections and competition for buyers, but it was short-lived once we saw end of September after the Fed meeting, rates go back to 7. It was like kind of a weird thing. It was almost like another 6-week window of when you could really make out well as a seller.
Yep.
And that was like, again, late August, early September. Had a lot of declined offers.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So quarter 4,
but
finish.
Yeah, I was going to say, brought us into quarter 4, which sold data so far, which obviously we're filming this like a couple weeks before the end of December, so we don't have all of it, but the data we have so far is 681 units, so still more than quarter 1, but a lot less than quarter 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Days to offer was 28, so that started picking back up. Expireds, 101.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's honestly, I've been tracking expired since I started because it's just kind of something that I've been interested in when I look at the data, and there has, like, I've seen it just happen. Way more expireds than you've ever seen. And then in talking to some of these agents, it's, expectations of wanting, they should have probably listed in Q1, beginning Q2, but they waited until Q3 and then they didn't get what they wanted.
It's almost one house a day.
Almost, yeah, right?
In a quarter. Or more than that, actually, right?
So it definitely, we've talked about this a lot. There's obviously some people out there have to sell when they have to sell, and it is a fact of life. Job changes, divorces, any, life changes happen, and you have to do it.
If you're someone that is trying to buy, that may be the best time for you.
Yeah.
Because you're maybe not going to get, 102% of your asking price, but you get your offer accepted on the other side.
Yeah. With the contingencies that you want, with the protections.
Yeah. You're not going to be homeless.
Exactly. So that brings us into looking even at the original list price is $830, down a little bit. Average list price at the time of offer was $810. So definitely seeing those price drops a bit more, that about $20,000 difference. And then your average sale price was $814. So sale price to list price ratio, you were only at about 100%. So in Q4, we've pretty much seen a lot of homes go at ask, sometimes, slightly over, but even below ask. So that original list price, that sale price ratio was only 98. So those price drops kind of stayed true, and that's where buyers were getting their offers accepted at. We saw kind of a little bit of a roller coaster in these months. So sale price to list price ratio, you were only at about 100%. So in Q4, we've pretty much seen a lot of homes go at ask, sometimes, slightly over, but even below ask. So that original list price, that sale price ratio was only 98. So those price drops kind of stayed true, and that's where buyers were getting their offers accepted at. We saw kind of a little bit of a roller coaster in these months. So October for interest rates was at about 6.7. November went back down to about 6.5. And I remember just a few weeks ago, we've been working with people like that quarter of a percentage, it makes a big difference in your monthly payment.
Yeah.
And then December, we've seen them kind of tick back up to the 6.7. Hopefully we don't get beyond that 7 mark, and hopefully next year things will start to creep back down to the 6 range that they think is going to happen. But that's what we're seeing so far. So
yeah.
What was going on in the economy? So the Fed did lower the rates. I think they've done 2.
And I think they're meeting today again too.
Yeah. But the long-term mortgage rate has actually increased. We had the major U.S. election, and additional global volatility created uncertainty in the market. And we have a big video with one of our great lenders, Mike, who kind of talked about that difference between the Fed rates and mortgage rates. So they're 2 different things, go along with each other, but when the Fed's cut, that doesn't mean mortgage rates are cut. And when there's big things happening globally, it's the bonds that really affect mortgage rates. And that's why we still see that like volatility.
Right.
There's really no trend right now. I think you put like, it's very reactionary. If anything kind of big happens in the headlines, it's going up or down depending on what that is.
And like we talked about in that video, that Fed cut really impacted more. So like your credit cards and your car loans and your short-term, like 5-6 year or less loans, not our 30-year loans for mortgages. You can still capitalize on that reduction even if it didn't happen in your mortgage rate like you wanted to. Like call your credit card company, call your car loan, call anywhere where you're borrowing money when the Fed announces that rate and try to see if you can negotiate and get that number down.
Yeah. And then what it felt like, honestly, right now, it feels like we're kind of back in that buyer-friendly market where you're able to put in one offer, get an offer accepted. I think what's really hard right now is our inventory is very low. So if you're a particular buyer looking for a certain kind of house in a certain place, having that pop up has been a challenge.
Right.
However, if you're like a first-time home buyers that are really like, hey, I just kind of, want to get my skin in the game and figure out from there, you're able to get those houses at ask, under ask. Like we said, mine just 40,000 under with 10K back. We have another one. I mean, my last 2 buyers have started with at least 10K equity with the appraisal value.
Right.
And one was on Cape, and that's a market that before, I want to say maybe in the last like 6 months, we really hadn't seen that as big of a shift as we did here on the South Shore.
Yeah.
Even the Cape market is starting to really, I think, get that seasonality in it.
Yeah. And like you're saying, like with inventory being down, like there was inventory like 30 days ago, but now that we're literally a week before Christmas, what's on is on, and there's really not anything else coming on. But we have an agent in our office that listed something today. Beautiful, like great price, great condition, great location. I texted it to my client. They're like, yes, we want to see it immediately. I texted her. I'm like, take it off the market. I need to get this house from my people. Like, so if you do have something great, we talked about before we recorded, when you get a price increase, like I just got one yesterday, Disney Plus is going up. So they let you know, hey, February 1st, there's going to be a price increase. You're going from whatever, $12.99 a month to $14.99 a month. What we're trying to tell sellers is, hey, it's still a seller's market. This is when you are at an optimal opportunity for pricing. And at the same time, for buyers, there is a price increase coming. It is coming just like it did in 2024. There's a price increase coming right around Super Bowl Sunday. And if you buy before then, you're going to get today's price. If you buy during the increase, you might get lucky. You know what I mean? But after that, we saw compared to 2023, there was a 5.5% increase in median prices sold between the 2 years. So we usually say 4% is average. So even though I feel like most of what we've talked about is bad, we still appreciated above average this year. No, we didn't appreciate 30% like we did during those 3 COVID years. But if you wait until June or July, you're going to be on the other side of that Disney Plus price increase. It's happening in the spring market, for lack of a better term, shit or get off the pot.
Right? I know. And it's looking at the trends and looking at what's happened in the past and what we can likely expect to happen in the future. Everyone's situation is different. So the other thing we were saying is letting us know now so we know what part of this is going to be the best fit for you. Do you have to sell because you need the most amount of money and then you're hightailing it out of here and going on like buying an RV, going on a countrywide tour? So, somebody I know is doing that right now, which I'm so jealous. Like you might want to list in that February, March time because that's when you're going to get your most money.
Right.
But if you're a seller and a buyer,
it might be yesterday.
So there's different for every single scenario out there. Every person's different. Everyone's going to fit in here perfectly. And like you said, like some of this stuff doesn't sound great. However, I feel like I have a lot of happy buyer clients this year because we strategically planned when they're going to buy. And sellers too. I mean, I had two. One was a sell by, but they were going to a 55 plus place, so we knew they didn't have to like worry about the money as much on the other end. And they got like $60K more than they ever thought they would get for their house.
Yeah.
Because again, we listed in, I believe, late February.
Yeah.
Early March.
Yeah. I think it's again, and if your budget doesn't really matter, like if you know you can swing $50K in either direction, it is what it is. My big concern is always for those people that, like me, like you, we've been on the bottom of the financial totem pole in terms of the housing market. It is really scary to watch buyers afford something and then have the market just take them out by the knees because rates didn't get better, prices went up. Like again, 5% increase, that's on your average first-time home or your average entry-level home, that's like $25K.
Yeah.
Can you save $25K in a year? Not if you're renting.
Yeah, no.
You know?
Yeah, that money's going straight to the landlord.
Yeah. Even if you're living at home, you have to be a really special kind of person to be setting aside $2,000 a month and be that disciplined to not touch it.
Yeah. So yeah, you know, I think hopefully next year kind of goes as planned. Rates will continue or will start to really drop back down. I think people are saying hopefully low sixes.
Yeah.
By the end of next year, but it really, again, I never thought about this as much until the last, like I'd say year or so, is really looking
consumer or us as agents, like
the
that,
government and the economy.
It is what it is,
like,
right?
Looking at those jobs reports, what does unemployment look like? Where is inflation at? And that can, those are kind of some leading factors to see like, all right, I don't think rates are going to go down, or all right, things are looking good. I think rates might start.
So that's why when you're trying to time the market, like who could have predicted COVID?
No.
You know, like trying to time the market, you just, if you can and you want to, then you should.
Yep.
And that's kind of, I think, what we try to just deliver the information. And, you know, like we'll talk about in our next video, next year probably is going to look a lot like this year.
Yeah.
Just at a higher price.
Unfortunately. Or fortunately. Right?
Yeah, right.
Those that bought and are able to
trade up.
Trade up. You got that equity. So, and those that are renting and hoping to be first-time buyers, there's so much media out there saying like, this is a horrible market for first-time buyers. Don't buy your first home. We've worked with plenty that, again, when you do it right, you make a solid plan, you look at your budget, you put all those pieces together, and then you really work with your professionals. It can happen.
Right.
You know, we have countless clients, first-time home buyers that have entered the market and they were able to secure a house that they love.
Yeah.
So don't be fearful. Knowledge is power, and we'll get you there.
Yeah.
All right.
Happy 2024.
Yes. Happy 2024.
Peace out, 24.
See ya. And don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next year.